I think that's a classic problem that we all face, and it's just a priorities thing, isn't it? Like if you've got other priorities.
I didn't have any like field real world experience, so my question is, on which point you think will be good enough to start in the low level? With what do you think? Where is the point where that could be the right moment?
It's a really good question, mate, and that's a question I get quite a lot. Chris, what do you do for a living at the moment?
What's the main difference between smart home automation and commercial or industrial BMS?
You can't build a business off doing that stuff, and it goes obsolete, within a couple of years. So,
Like one day, did you just wake up one day and say that, okay, I want to open this company of mine? I have a company. How did you start it?
they were making cuts. So I actually got made redundant from Loxon.
So the hardest point is I've got nothing on paper that says I'm competent to work with electricals.
But so what do you want? What do you ultimately want to do, mate? Guys, let's just get straight into it. We're a little bit early, but let's get straight into it. Like what this is about, as I'm going to start doing this a little bit more regularly, but just anything that you want to know about the industry, about business, about sales, marketing, social media stuff that I have some experience in. I want to just share my knowledge, what I've learned so far, and if it's going to be helpful for you guys, I want to share that with you. So yeah, have you guys got any questions that you'd like to sort of ask, or are you struggling with anything, any problems, that kind of thing?
Hello, Chris. You all right?
Yeah, good to see you, mate.
Yeah, Andrew, mate. Yeah.
So talk to me, guys. What things are you struggling with, or what things would you like to know?
Everyone seems to be doing fine.
Yeah, everyone's doing all right. We're just gonna sit here and sit in silence, I think.
Not silent.
Getting time to try and get these modules complete is if you could get me a couple more hours at the end of the day, it'd be great, Chris. Yeah.
Yeah, well, I think that's a classic problem that we all face, and it's just a priorities thing, isn't it? Like if you've got other priorities, that are of higher importance, you're going to focus on those things first. So it's just, yeah, we put our time where our priorities are, don't we? Really, that's kind of what that comes down to. I'll tell you what, Gary, you could wake up half an hour earlier. How about that?
Yeah, I'll be waking up before I went to bed, mate. I've got to adjust a little bit because I also want a bit of free time to myself. You know what I mean, Chris? But I'm going to adjust it slightly, so I've got concentrate more on studying. Yeah, definitely. I think that's the way forward, anyway, for myself.
Yeah, mate, I think that's probably a smart. I'll just close my windows so I can hear better. Yeah, I mean, investing in it's like personal development, professional development, self-development. Like this is sort of a space that I've been in for quite a while, purely out of started purely through sort of frustration and basically being in a place of not being very happy, not being in a job that I enjoyed, um, mental health, that kind of thing, getting anxious, depressed, and how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this situation? And it all comes with self-development, whether it's mindset skills or tangible skills like electrical controls, learning how to use CAD, all of these sales skills, marketing skills, understanding social media. It's just all skills at the end of the day. That's what it comes down to. I think it's just sort of, investing the time into those skill sets so you can, if you're not in a place of pain, then you're not going to be motivated to put in the time and invest in things. So yes, like how much pain are you in, I suppose.
It's just also there's lots of studying I'm doing at the moment. Apart from this, I'm doing some engine stuff. I'm studying engines as well, and it's like I've got to sort of either decide to be a specialist in something because there's so much to learn about one certain thing all the time, isn't there? You know, so you got to sort of make a decision. I'm getting a bit old now, so make some sort of decision what I want to stick to. I'm a specialist in that field, you know.
I get it, mate. There's so many distractions. Certainly in the world that we live in now with social media and everyone's like the currency is attention. People are trying to capture your attention. And yeah, it's like again, it's like a decision on what do you actually want? What do you want? Do you have do you is it like a lifestyle that you want and you're not really too fussed about the vehicle of getting that lifestyle in terms of like business or career, or have you got a specific interest in a certain area? We've got a few more people in now. Basically I want to start doing these a little bit more regularly, guys. Basically, look, I've been in like the controls automation industry for about 6 years now. I've got, I don't know everything, but I know a certain amount, and if I can pass on any of that knowledge, those lessons that I've learned to you guys, based on where you guys want to go, whether it is progressing your career, whether it is building your own business, there's lots of questions that come up when you're doing these kind of things. Maybe it is a specific question, about smart homes, maybe a specific question on the industry, just anything basically. I want to do what I can to pass on my knowledge because I didn't have that when I was getting into the industry, and it's taken me a lot longer to get there and feel more comfortable. So yeah, if I can help at all, then I want to. But I obviously need to know what you guys are struggling with, or what you'd like to know. It's a Q&A session, so I'm a little bit reliant on you guys. Chris, hello, mate.
Hello. So what is on my mind? So my work is not related at the moment to BMS and control automation. I'm just learning this as a completely on the side, something which I would like to get involved. On which point you think will be good enough to start in the low level? I mean, somewhere else. I already got some understanding how the system works. I'm going through all the sections of the training available, but I didn't have any like field real world experience. So my question is, what do you think? Where is the point where that could be the right moment?
Yeah, it's a really good question, mate, and that's a question I get quite a lot. Chris, what do you do for a living at the moment?
I'm actually a supervisor for like a group of electricians and commercial and domestic estate in London.
Okay, and so And so your background and your skill set at the moment, is that an electrical skill set?
Electrical, yes, electrical.
Okay, so you've got a skill set in like an electrical, and you've also got a skill set in leading teams, managing teams.
Yeah.
Okay, and what would you, so you're looking to then move into like the BMS controls sector, and be employed basically, like as an employee?
I'm looking really coming back on the tools as doing maybe BMS or automation, not leading a BMS group, basically coming back more on the doing this myself, starting from there. Yeah.
Okay. So you'd be happy then to sort of, even though you're in a sort of management leadership position at the moment, you'd be happy to sort of come down a little bit, get back on the tools, maybe do some install electrical commissioning stuff in BMS.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not finding satisfying anymore managing other people. I always like to be on the tools, and I think I want to go in this direction more. Yes.
Okay, okay. I hear you. Yeah, managing people, it's like people are like, oh yeah, I want to progress to management, and then you get there, and you're like, fuck, I've got to manage people, and it's quite frustrating, and especially when most people aren't that interested. They aren't that, to be frank, aren't actually that good. It's the 5% of people that are good. The majority of people aren't actually that good, and they go to work, they get their pay, and then they go home. They don't really care, and it's very difficult. So I understand why you may want to sort of get out of that. So I'm going to share my screen, mate, because that's a very relevant topic for what I'm actually working on at the moment with someone, a private client, Mo, and I just want to share sort of where we're at with sort of his journey at the moment and what we've done. So I've been doing sort of some one-on-one sessions with him. So yeah, the first thing, mate, it's kind of like you've got a skill set, yeah, a very valuable skill set that can be applied to the BMS industry. Like you've got an electrical skill set. The easiest place for an electrician or electrical contractor, or easiest position for them to progress into in terms of the BMS, into the BMS industry, is like coming in as like an electrical installer slash commissioning engineer, where you'd work with like a more senior commissioning engineer who would be doing more like the PLC programming, potentially fault finding, and you're kind of assisting. You help with the install, and then you're assisting him just getting the system up and running and hand it over to the client. So that's kind of the role that's most suited for people with this sort of electrical background. Obviously, firstly, you need to be able to. The question for you is like, when do you start maybe approaching companies, applying for other positions, right? When do you start doing that? My answer to you would be, well, you've already got a certain level of controls understanding, right? You went through the schematic specialist training. So that, I would say, that's a good place. You've got, that's like the foundation, mate. That was in a BMS project as well. So I think that's a really good place. You've got that level of understanding. You've built a bit of a skill set in schematics, big picture BMS systems. How do you, if I started then, let's say I was a recruitment consultant, working for a recruitment agency. Let's say that your CV was in order and stuff. Like, we need to find the gaps in your knowledge. So I would start asking you questions. If I started asking you questions about, the lower level stuff that we covered in that first training, you don't need to know how to test systems. You don't need to know how to program systems, but they will be looking for a general understanding of BMS systems. So I won't bother finding it now, but I've got some, I'll try and find it when I'm still talking. So I would say, mate, the point is now, because I think you've got more understanding than most other electrical contractors. So you would be valuable to a business looking for people like that. I think the other thing is people that aren't in the industry, that are looking into the industry, that are in other roles. Sorry, there's an alarm going off outside distracting me. They don't see how much of a shortage there is of people in the industry. Like there's a massive shortage of not just like good engineers, but just people that understand a little bit about BMS. So you're already one level above like an electrical contractor, because there's electrical contractors that want to get into the industry that are probably firing out their CV to all these BMS commissioning engineering roles, but they're not going to get anywhere because they've got no BMS understanding. So I'm long-winded answer, mate. Now is the answer. But I would suggest getting your CV in order first and crafting it in a way that is picking up on keywords that recruiters are going to be looking at. I worked in recruitment for 6 months, absolutely hated it, but I kind of understand what things are being looked for. So you need to, nowadays they use software to filter through CVs, because people just go online, they go on the job sites and they're like, apply, and their CV and their experience doesn't really match what is being looked for in the roles of like a install commissioning engineer. So keywords in your CV like BMS, like building management systems, maybe like some of the main manufacturers that get used in the commercial space in the UK, like Trend, Tridium, control panel, commissioning, these kind of words that get picked up by the software that recruiters use that help filter out all the shit to, what's, potentially good people. So it's crafting your CV in a way that has these keywords in. What we did with Mo is we set him up on LinkedIn. So there's things on that, but basically match your CV on on LinkedIn, and then it's getting your CV out to recruiters, but then being prepared for when they start calling you. So having some answers to some questions pre-prepared that you can answer, so you can get through to the next stage of where you're actually talking to, a business owner or a hiring manager or something. Sorry, mate, I'm going off on one. Do you want to bring me back to your question?
No, I think you answer pretty much. Yeah. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, it's quite daunting as well when you feel like you haven't got experience in that area, like specific BMS experience. Like it's a big thing. Like you just think you have to have experience. Let me show you.
The right answer is a junior position to help someone.
Yeah, I mean, you might get taken on as a trainee initially, but like, so I'm talking from my own experience here. So this is exactly what happened with me. It wasn't for a BMS commissioning engineer, it's for an electrical controls engineer working for R&B Industrial. And this is kind of the same approach that I'd recommend to people in your situation. Basically, I didn't have any experience as an electrical controls engineer. I'd worked for Loxon. I did a bit of stuff on PLCs, but mostly I was training Loxon's partner network, delivering trainings, planning projects, doing account management. I didn't have any experience, like no previous experience in this role, but I had some, like an engineering background, like you've got an electrical background that is helpful, that is relevant. I've got some work experience, even though it's not experience in that sector per se or that role. I've got work experience compared to, say, like a university graduate. So you've got to find the things that are relevant and capitalize on them. You can only use what you've got, but you need to capitalize on those and sell those. You don't have to, not like in a Del Boy sort of way, just being honest with what you've got and what that can bring to them. So that's one part of it. And then I think the other part, I think the thing that really enabled me to land this position, and it started off as a junior electrical controls engineer, and then it progressed up, and I can get into like how we negotiated it and we progressed up. But I think the other thing that is more important, and because it's not written on job descriptions when you look at job sites, it's your character traits, who you are as a person. Like, are you motivated? Are you determined? Do you take responsibility? Are you going to be valuable to a business? Like, say we're just talking about a small business here. Like, this was a business of 10 people, 10, 12 people. Are you able to go in, and after you've learned some stuff and you've got used to some things, are you the type of person that can take responsibility off a business owner? It's these kind of skills, softer skills that aren't written on CVs, but can be communicated when you're actually on the phone to someone, or when you're in front of someone, where it's like, yes, I don't have this level of experience, as an electrical controls engineer, but I'm very confident in my ability, and I know that as soon as I've been given sort of a bit of a chance, bit of opportunity, that I can progress into this role and I can take this off your plate. Now, you've got, obviously, the more of a skill set you've got, like, so I like to differentiate experience and skill set. So for you, for example, you've got a skill set now in electrical schematics and big picture BMS stuff. Yes, you haven't got experience, but you can talk to that business owner about the things that you know, things that you understand. That's also valuable. Yes, no experience, but I have this skill set, I have this knowledge, I have this understanding. So I think it's just recognizing what you do have, and I think on the early stages, crafting a CV so you can get get noticed. It's kind of like you need to grab people's attention, I suppose, in the CV. And yes, they might be exaggerated. Yes, you might be selling yourself a little bit too much, dropping in keywords that are relevant, but that's kind of just to get past the gatekeeper. You know, if you're doing like cold outbound sales calls, you've got to get past the receptionist to then get to the decision maker, the business owner. It's a bit like that, you know. So if my CV is not 100% accurate, I don't care, because I'm just trying to get past the gatekeeper until I can speak to the actual business owner and I can communicate on a deeper level, and I can communicate these softer skills that we talked about. I think it's just having that confidence, that tenacity, and knowing that business owners value these things just as much as the technical stuff. It's just they're not mentioned in CVs, which is kind of fair enough, because anyone can say, you know, it's that thing that you see on CVs that it's like, oh, I'm a team player. I can work individually and as a team. Great communication skills. It's like you can say that on a CV on paper, but it doesn't mean anything until I actually see it and I actually speak to you. You know, and then even then, it doesn't matter until I actually put you to the test. You know what I mean? So I think of it like that. It's like get past the gatekeeper, get yourself to talking to an actual business owner, and then if you've actually secured that position, then it's like negotiating your progression, especially if you're not in your 20s anymore. You know, you've got mortgages to pay. You need to level up quickly and negotiate. Look, when I get to this level where I can take responsibility and deliver this without any assistance, I would like to get X amount. Or when I've reached this level and got this qualification, I would then like this amount, to the level then of what in my case, an electrical controls engineer would be. So I started off here 35k as a trainee, and within a year I was up to 45k because I've negotiated sort of, you know, my progression, and they were happy with that.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you, Chris.
Mate, send me a message later and I can talk a little bit more in more depth about this, and I can give you some sort of guidance of what I've seen works, and some questions that might come up from recruiters, just so you can get mentally prepared for it.
Good. Thank you.
Sorry, that was long-winded. I went off on one there. Sorry, mate.
Chris, a quick one.
Yeah, who's that?
So, what's the main difference between smart home automation and commercial or industrial BMS?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I've got a graphic somewhere that details this very well, but I'm not going to be able to find it very quickly. So you got, let's just say we got smart home automation on one side, and then we've got commercial BMS on the other side. It's more, I would say, yeah, commercial building management systems is more in commercial buildings where we're like managing heating, ventilation, air conditioning, you know, potentially lighting, but it's usually the HVAC of like hotels, multi-dwelling units, leisure centres, cinemas. Like pretty much every commercial building you'll see will have a BMS in it. In industrial, yeah, so we just leave it at that, just to sort of define BMS. And then smart home, that's like another thing that we kind of need to define and break apart, because when people say smart home, it's like, okay, so we've got like all these IoT devices like Ring doorbell, Hive, Philips Hue, like consumer grade off the shelf shit basically, that isn't really, you can't really integrate with other systems. Yes, you can have little ecosystems like Philips Hue ecosystems. So that when I talk about smart home and smart home automation, I'm not talking about that stuff. That's like, you can't build a business off doing that stuff. And it goes obsolete, you know, within a couple of years. So what I'm talking about is like home automation. So home automation then splits into two areas. So what you've got is you've got like the AV side of home automation, which is more systems like Control 4, Savan, Elan, what's some other ones? Crestron. Like that's kind of like the AV based home automation system, which is great if you or your client is interested in things like cinema rooms and media rooms and big speaker systems and maybe some CCTV and an intercom and wants TVs in every room, that kind of thing. So that's like AV, but on the smart home, on the home automation. So I usually say home automation for that kind of stuff rather than smart home. So we got the AV side on home automation, and then we've also got the BMS side on home automation. So that's more systems like Loxon, like KNX. So you kind of got like two kind of, I suppose, little sectors in the home automation sector. The AV and then more building management stuff, like Loxon focusing on the building management stuff, KNX Loxon, that is better at doing things like heating, ventilation, air conditioning, blinds, and it's less focused on being able to control multiple TVs across the house, bringing in like audio, intercom systems. Like it's more what you would see in the commercial BMS space, where you're actually trying to optimize and make your system more energy efficient and like run more smoothly, conserve energy, that kind of thing. So Eric, does that kind of answer your question, like what the differences are?
Yes.
Do you want to know? I know I went quite broad with that just to sort of define the differences. Have you then got any sort of specific questions, you know, within that, what I just mentioned?
No, it was just, it was confusing because, okay, in my thinking, they both of them, either industrial, commercial, and the smart home automation. So I just think both of them are just automation.
Yeah. So
I just wanted to know specific why both of them are automation. So I will control or monitor my building remotely. Why do I have to call this one smart home and I call the other one BMS or BEMS? And okay, for industrial, that one is much deeper. So between the commercial and home automation.
what's the difference between like the home automation and the commercial BMS? Is that?
Yes, yeah, commercial BMS.
So I would say like the big picture, without going into like the detail, big picture is BMS, commercial BMS, building management system, or BEMS, building energy management systems. The primary focus of that is to reduce businesses' energy costs by managing mostly the HVAC properly. So heating, ventilation, air conditioning. Now you can also tie in blind control, lighting control. You can tie in renewables into that. But the primary focus in commercial is to reduce energy costs. You know, because if you think of massive office space, like huge office space, like skyscraper office space, you think about the costs that goes into like managing all the heating, ventilation, air conditioning. So if you can save like 10% on a building that's spending 100K on energy every year, if you can sort of manage that a bit better and save 10%, you're saving them 10K every year, which kind of pays for the system within a few years So it's saving energy, and also it's the other key thing with a BMS, a building management system, is a commercial premises. Let's focus on a hotel, for example. Hotel, that needs to be, let's just focus on the hot water, for example. Hotel needs to be able to produce hot water 24/7, 365 days a year. Okay. There cannot be any downtime. Our clients of that hotel are going to get pissed off. They're going to get bad reviews. They're not going to get repeat business. They're going to get bad reputation, blah, blah, blah. It's not good for business if that hotel isn't able to produce hot water 24/7, 365 days. So what I'm saying with that is BMSs are there to sort of bring attention to faults and problems and send out alarms to people that are managing that building as soon as they happen. So there's no, like, a fault comes in, say a pump stops running. Well, the first thing is you'd actually have like a duty standby setup where, say this pump that's running here goes into fault, it sends a signal and a notification that this pump's gone into fault, and whoever's managing that building can be notified straight away. We need to get an engineer out straight away, get this sorted, and we know exactly where we need to go to fix the problem because we're monitoring all the devices in the system, and we know that this one's gone into fault, so it's likely that this is the problem. We need to just replace that. But at the same time, because we've got a duty standby setup, we've also brought this pump on to run when this one goes into fault. So we still got that hot water being sent out to, well, going out in the hotel and still, satisfying clients' demands if they're having showers and hot water and stuff. So that's kind of like big picture BMS in the commercial space. Like it's absolutely necessary. One, to save energy, but two, it's good for business, and things need to be running consistently, and you cannot afford to have things offline. So that's like the big commercial BMS. And then smart home or home automation, there's certainly elements of BMS, but I'm just going to mute you, mate, 'cause I'm just getting a bit of feedback, but unmute yourself if you've got questions after this. There's elements in home automation where you do want that level of sort of like saving energy, and like you might want to monitor if a pump goes down or a valve isn't open or closed. You might want to do that, but that's extra cost, which isn't 100% necessary in a home because you're not serving anyone. It's not, bad for business if a pump stops running. So it's more in the home automation space, it's more just for convenience, luxury, comfort. For example, I've recently moved house and I don't have my locks on smart home system installed yet. And the biggest thing for me that's an inconvenience for me, but it wouldn't be an inconvenience had I not lived with it and experienced it in my last home. But for example, when I leave the house, I've got to, if I'm unsure, I've got to go around and check all the lights are off, individually each room, or I might have to go around and check that all the windows are closed. Now, in my previous house, when I had all of this installed, I can just triple tap the switch at my front door when I'm leaving the house, and that just switches off everything. That switches off all the lights, all the audio. It can like reset heating schedules. It can turn off hot water. You can do whatever you want to happen, based on how you program it. It can check to tell you could have like an audio notification play in the hallway through the speakers to tell you that it's detected a window in the master bedroom is open. Now, if you've got motorized windows, then it would just close that for you automatically and you wouldn't need to be notified. But do you see what I'm saying? It's kind of like more of a convenience thing.
Yes, now I get it now.
Cool. And then you've also got like the AV side of home automation where it's more, just more TVs and speakers, audio visual stuff, which is less about those examples that I just talked about. It's more about just getting TV streams through the house and that kind of thing, and maybe having a cinema room or a media room, maybe having like a projector screen that comes down from the ceiling, that kind of stuff. So hopefully that's sort of giving you a big picture view on the differences, Eric.
Yeah, that gives me a big picture, and also about like career, we can say career development wise. What do someone need? For example, okay, you are I've seen your CV on Clicks. You are self-employed. You own your own business. How did you, like, one day? Did you just wake up one day and say that, okay, I want to open this company of mine? I have a company. How did you start it? And like convincing your first client?
Yeah, so it's a good question, and it's like there's so many answers to this question. So there's no right or wrong answer to it. All I can do is I can share what I did. I think that's probably all we got time for today, because I can go off on all the different ways you can sort of do sort of lead acquisition or lead generation, and then like client acquisition and all of that. But that's for another day. But me personally, what I did, so I worked at Loxon as an employee. And then actually, I didn't leave. I actually got made redundant from them. They were making cuts. So I actually got made redundant from Loxon. And it was like all they did it in a really shitty way. I'm not going to get into all the details. It was a really shit way of doing it. They basically told 3 or 4 of us on a Friday afternoon, yeah, you're not coming back next week. You're going to get a week of garden leave, and then that's it. You're done. So I was just like kind of, and this was right around COVID, just before COVID started. So I was like, ah, shit. But luckily, I'd built up, I'd networked with people, obviously from helping people within the industry or helping Loxon partners who were in the industry. And I was able to do bits and pieces contracting before I landed this position. As an electrical controls engineer with R&B Industrial, I was basically contracting through COVID because I knew people knew me. So that's the first thing. That's like the most important thing. Is network with people, and there's loads of different ways you can do that. Like whether it's social media, where you put stuff out on social media and people get to know you. Obviously that takes a lot of effort and a lot of time. Or it's going to like what are they called? Like those business groups where people sort of network in business groups. You can go to like trade shows, just getting people to know you firstly. That's kind of like the biggest thing. Know what you can do, what you have to offer, how you can help them. And it's not going to be exactly what you want to do straight away, but it's just showing people that you can help them, helping them, building that network kind of thing. This is just the way that I did it. There's other ways you can go about doing this. So that was the first thing that I did. Then I joined R&B Industrial, and so basically for the first year working there, I was just full-time employed. But then I was able to, I was actually also doing, because I was a sole trader, had a little business set up on the side. I was doing little things here and there, like on weekends for some of the people that I knew. Started getting private jobs here and there. It's mostly started off, it wasn't like big projects. It was mostly takeover projects. So where people had shitty Loxon systems installed, they needed rectifying, or they needed updating or reprogramming. So it's just sort of day rate stuff here and there, which I think that's quite common. Like when you start off on your own, you just got to take what you can get, and over time you kind of build up a bit of a client base, or you then start to land larger projects. So I was doing little bits on the side throughout that time, and then towards the end, like the last 6 months, 4 months, I kind of negotiated with them to go down to 4 days a week, and then my idea was Fridays, Saturdays, Sundays, I'll do my own thing, like in my own time, start building that up more. Then I managed to negotiate it to do 3 days a week with these guys, and then the rest of the time doing my own thing. And then eventually, like through still sort of being out there, having some freedom to do my own thing, I basically landed a position as a contractor, a self-employed contractor, where I then went and joined a company called Neo Systems, like under my own business, self-employed, basically delivering BMS projects for this company, Neo System Automation. So these guys. So I was a contractor with them for a year. Again, building up still doing private stuff here and there. It was flexible because I was self-employed contractor, and that's just kind of how it builds up. Initially, I think it's important for people, especially from like engineering background, certainly electricians, because I saw this a lot at Loxon, whereby electricians, they would come on the 5-day training and they think, oh, now I'm a Loxon partner, I've done the 5 days training, that I'm suddenly going to get lots of smart home projects. It's not the case. Just because you're on the Loxon, see if I can find it, Loxon partner map, just because you're on there doesn't mean you're going to get like loads of leads through the door and you're going to get loads of projects, or Loxon are going to give you projects. So it's not like being an electrician where you're in high demand. Like, people need electricians to sort their electrics out in their homes day in, day out. Like, people aren't looking for smart home projects day in, day out. It's a very small market. So you need to develop business skills. You need to develop sales skills. You need to have a website. You need to, this is a classic one. You need a website. You need an email that looks more professional than joeblogs@outlook.com. You know, you need to, if you're going to win smart home projects, you need to look on the surface at least that you're a professional outfit before you're actually ever going to stand a chance of landing full-on projects, which is what you want. And then once you get that full-on project, I would be, or I have done, and I would encourage other people, is to sort of document as much as you can, videos, photos, social proof, do a really bloody good job. Maybe you have to do it for less than what you would eventually, just to get that first job under your belt. Do a really good job, make sure the client is super, super happy. Then you get a testimonial, so more social proof that you've done it. You might get a referral from them as well. I'm just obviously talking about smart homes specifically at the moment. And then it just grows from there. And it doesn't happen overnight. It does take time. There's quicker ways that you can go about doing all of this. But generally speaking, I think that's kind of the path that most people would take when they're going from being in an employed position to then doing sort of contracting stuff to then building their own business.
Thanks for that.
Does that make sense, mate? Does that kind of answer what you're asking?
Yeah, it's making a lot of sense.
Cool. So this was the partner map that I was referring to. So as you go on the Loxon training course for 5 days, bearing in mind you're only taught about the Loxon system and ultimately how to program it. I used to run these trainings. So you basically spend 5 days learning how to use the software. Can you see my desktop here, guys?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yes.
let me just show you this. You basically spend 5 days learning how to program, but that doesn't tell you anything about everything else that comes before the programming. So specifying a job, designing a job, pricing a job, thinking about the wiring infrastructure, installing it, building a control panel, testing a control panel, etc., etc. They only go through, using this software and how to program. So there's far more to it. And at the end of that 5 days, you then get your little pin on this map, and then people would just expect leads to just flood into them and for Loxon to give them leads. Like one of the things that I used to hear on the phone all the time when I was speaking to people about coming on the training, they're like, "Oh, will you give me leads? Will I get work through from you?" Can't promise anything. Sometimes we get leads that we can pass on to people, sometimes not. But you can't be reliant on, like, if you're going into business, please be aware that you need to generate your own leads, you need to do your own marketing, you need to do your own sales. So that's a really key thing, another skill set to develop. But develop that after you've developed the technical skill set, because if you haven't got the technical skill set, you can sell projects and win projects, but when you deliver a shitty project and get a shitty outcome, shitty pissed off client, you're not going to be in it long term. So technical skills first, and then start building up the business side and the sales skills and the marketing skills. If anyone's got one more question, I'm gonna try and wrap it up in the next 10 minutes. But yeah, if anyone's got another sort of shortish, well, it's me that takes the time. They're all short questions, but I go on rabbiting. So, has anyone got another question?
Yeah, go on then.
How's it going, mate? Alex, good to see you, buddy.
Yeah, it's been a while. So I think we spoke a while ago, but I come from sort of an IT network engineer background. And I think sort of the hardest point is I've got nothing on paper that says I'm competent to work with electricals. So what would be a good route to sort of get started and say this person's actually okay to open a control panel up and prod around with a meter?
So that's what you want to do then, is it? You want to
I'd like to sort of build it into what I do.
Yeah.
We work with a lot of customers that we do their networks. We'd also maybe like to do their BMS. And I've worked with the school lately, and their BMS is a bit of a shit show.
Yeah. Okay. So just so I can answer the question like directly. So your IT background, like you network and all the rest of it, but what you want to do? Sorry, just say that again.
I'd like to I've got that troubleshooting skill set already, and I think that's completely applicable in the same way, really. But I've not got anything necessarily on paper to say electrically.
Yeah.
I'm not Sparky. So.
Yeah.
Where is the sort of, you can go this far, but here's where you have to stop.
Right. Well, and what do you want to do then? So you haven't got electrical qualifications on paper, but you're from a technical background.
Yeah.
But so what do you want? What do you ultimately want to do, mate?
I'd like to be able to support our customers that we've already got with their BMS systems.
Okay.
We've already got those customers, so why not farm them for it?
All right, mate. So first thing, like if that's the situation for you, first thing I'd recommend, and of course these are kind of like answers tailored specifically to you and your situation. For you, mate, I would just jump on 18th edition or 19th or whatever it is now. Jump on 18th edition. It's well worth it because it will just clue you up with electrics in the UK. Give you a bit more confidence. You're not going to be installing electrical systems. You're not going to be signing stuff off, but you're going to get a good understanding of like electrics, regulations, and it will probably not open up a can of worms, but it will lead you in other directions to go down and do research in that will just build that sort of confidence, I suppose, in electrical. And that will give you something on your CV or on paper, whether you want it to be on your CV or not. That'll give you a certificate. It's relatively easy. It doesn't take too much study time, and it's not too expensive. So that would be the first thing I would focus on. Do that. That'd be really good. I think really that's the answer. So let's go a bit deeper. So let's say you've done that. What's like in your head? What's the next thing then? So you've got that 18th edition. Now what do you want to do?
I'm not entirely sure. Basically, my experience has come from working with one customer in particular that we've got, they've had a new building 5 years or so. Some stuff's gone wrong, AHUs have gone wrong, and I've got a bit stuck in.
Yeah.
And I've sort of known where to draw the line and say, I'm not really going to probe around any more than this.
Yeah, sensible, mate.
Yeah.
That's a really valuable skill to have, and I think it took me a while to develop that skill, probably through learning things the hard way. Maybe you've been in the same, where you're like, if I go any further, I'm going to introduce problems that I'm then not going to be able to fix, and I don't want that to happen. That's not worth it. So, yeah, just on a tangent, that's a really good skill to have, you know, for anyone listening, like, know where to stop. But yeah, mate, so you just going back to what you were saying, you want to be able to basically help out the clients that you have with like some of their HVAC stuff, with some of their BMS stuff. Let's say hypothetically, you've now got that 18th edition. That's given you sort of a good sort of overall understanding of like the regs and electrical stuff in the UK. Just checking the chat, so I thought someone offered some advice. But anyway, so then the next thing is like, well, if you're working on BMS systems, HVAC systems, then it's like, well, now you need to have some sort of understanding in those systems. Have you been on any of the trainings that I've done?
Yeah, I did. I think we did the first one you released.
Did you do schematic savvy or schematic specialist?
I thought it was it control system specialist?
Oh, okay. Right, yeah. So yeah, but I don't think at the time, because you were one of the early members, you didn't get schematic specialist. So cheeky plug, that might be worth investing in as well. But I think you've got the other trainings, which hopefully has given you a fairly good understanding of BMS systems. The schematic specialist is like the first step, which really is like, it focuses more on like big picture stuff. Yeah, so that would be probably the progression path I would go down. Like, obviously you don't have to come to me for that, but it would be 18th edition electrical stuff, then just get a better big picture understanding of BMS systems from wherever that might be. And I just think then you'd feel more confident in your ability, and you know, rather what we mentioned earlier about you know the point at which you should stop is, so that might be here at the moment, but then that might move to here after you've done the electrical stuff, and it might move to here after you've done a bit more BMS stuff. So you'll be more valuable, more helpful, learning as you're helping out, you know, which moves that needle even further. So that's kind of what I'd recommend the pathway, just to give you a little bit of a confidence boost. I just want to share someone that's from your background. So when I was working at Loxon, these guys here, Automate, let me try and bring up their website. Yeah, so they're one of the best partners in the UK doing Loxon PLC based electrical control systems used for smart home and BMS primarily, right? These guys are all from an IT background. Okay, they've actually got an original business doing, I think it's Microsoft tech support for businesses, something like that.
Yeah.
And this was kind of like initially a side business for them. But you know, over time they've built it up. They've done very well. They've got a showroom in London, and they're one of the top partners in the UK for selling Loxon, and they've got the same background as you. What they did initially, starting out, is they did like the specifying, the client demos, the selling, like the design documentation. I think they even did the panel builds. But like all of the install stuff, they just contracted it out to electrical contractors. The electrical contractor can do all the installation, sign it off, add in like the general electrics as well, which they know about, and then you then come in and just do like the termination stuff, and then the commissioning and the programming. Like obviously with 230 volt stuff, you really need to be a qualified electrician, and you need to be able to sign things off. Whereas when it's more controls based and lower voltages, like extra low voltage, anything under 50 volts, there's no like regulations, there's no need to sign things off. There's less there's no like regulations around that, because it's safe, or safe, not safe, can still cause fires and stuff if you've installed it in the wrong way and haven't put the right kind of like protection fuses and whatnot in. So you still need to be relatively careful, but yeah, you don't have to sign things off like you would normal electrics, like an electrician. So do you see what I'm saying, mate? So
Yeah.
you don't need these qualifications to do well in the industry. You just contract out the things that you're not good at or you're not qualified to do, if
Yeah.
you were to get to that place. But yeah, to answer your first question, mate, I think 18th edition, that'd be really helpful, and then just do a bit more training wherever that is to get a big picture understanding of BMS systems.
Thanks.
All right, guys, I'm going to call it a day. Good to see you all. Thanks for coming. We'll do this again. I'm going to make it a more regular thing. So hope to see you all again.
Good video. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Chris.
Chris.
Yeah, bye-bye.